If you're a woodworker, you may or may not have already seen these. This is our Woodworking Gecko Bloc set. It's a new product that we've recently released, and a few people have already been kind enough to do some really nice review videos for us on YouTube. So I thought this would be a good opportunity to have a talk through what we actually designed these things to do, their intended use, and some frequently asked questions so that you can get a really good understanding for whether these things are actually going to help you in your woodworking projects. If you work mostly on very small and lightweight woodworking projects, the kind of things that fall into the small woodcrafts type of category, little jewellery boxes and cases, single picture frames, that kind of thing, these are not designed to support you with those type of projects. So one of the small grippy craft mats will always be a much better option. So we suggest that you definitely don't get these if that's the kind of woodworking that you do. These are designed to be used for anything from about this size and weight upwards. This is a small electric guitar body. It's just under 2 kilos, I think about 1.7 kilos. And that is as small as we would go in order for these things to be useful. And that's because you need a certain amount of weight on them in order for them to perform one of their main functions that we think people will get them for, which is to grip and stabilize your workpiece for things like sanding, routing and polishing. Each of these is a solid silicone block. There's no hollow core to them. And we tested so many different compounds of these before landing on what we think is the perfect hardness, so that they're tough and rigid enough for the really heavy projects, but they're soft enough that you don't need to load them up with weight in order for them to grip. I'll do a bit of a squeeze test. So you can see they do have a little bit of give, which is necessary for them to stay grippy. But I think if you were to use them this way, flat, you can never put enough. There's no woodworking project that will ever be too heavy to make these things squish and deform to make them unstable. I think if I'm using them flat, I could probably drive my car over the top. Now, one of the things that we are going to do is a strength test to failure video, much like the grip test to failure video that we did recently, but in the sideways and the upright positions, that's the ones where people are likely to be more interested in at what point they fail. So anecdotally, I've had a huge slab of walnut on them that was at least 30 kilos in this orientation and had no problems whatsoever. I suspect that I could put 50 or 60 kilos on them, on the set, that is, without having any issues at all, and probably a little bit less on this side. In fact, I'm just going to give you a quick demo in this position, which is the weakest of the three. And I've got a really heavy coffee table top, and I'm just going to drop it on top of here, and you can see, I'll move the camera, you'll be able to see how much these things are squishing, which is not at all. So this is about 20, at least 20 or 25 kilos. It's a solid slab, epoxy and chestnut coffee table top. So I'll move the camera, but they're not squidging down at all, and certainly not to the point where I couldn't put a substantial amount more weight on here yet before they would come unstable. The reason we designed the shape in such a way is that you can just flip it over to get to 3 different heights is primarily to help with getting even the largest clamps and clamping cauls underneath these for those instances where you need to raise your workpiece for things like glue ups or for marking up. The other benefit is that these 2 positions give you a nice stable and secure base for doing things like sanding and routing. That's not what this one is designed for, because it's not stable enough and it's not safe enough to do that. That's literally just for getting your workpiece as high as you can for getting big clamps underneath it. It's obvious to see how stable they'd be in this position, so let's take a quick look at how stable they are on their side for the instances where you might need to use that. So I'll pop a few of these around, and I won't line them all up in a row because then it'll be easy just to tip them over. So I'll do it fairly randomly. And what you will notice is I put them the long side down, not the short side down. That's exactly the same height as that, but this one is not stable. This one is stable. Oh, heavy tabletop again. And that really is solid. It's not going anywhere. I can't push it over. And that's because I've got them ordered randomly. So there's literally nothing I could do, no type of work I could do on that, even planing, that would push that over into the flat orientation. But I'm going to show you how easy it is to do that if you line them all up in a line. So you do need to make sure you do it this way. But now they're lined up all exactly the same way. I suspect this won't take much at all to push them over. There we go. So make sure when you pop them on your bench that you just do it in a completely random order. Don't line them all up. It makes it a lot easier to push over your workpiece. You could use them that way for finishing if you wanted to, because it does provide a very small contact area with the thing that you're going to be popping on top. But I will just say, we didn't design them with that use case in mind. This height orientation was supposed to be so that you can get big clamps and clamping cauls underneath to raise your workpiece for glue ups and that kind of thing. We already have a design in the works for a little extra add-on to these that's going to make them super stable for finishing even the largest projects. But I would suggest, if you're going to do these, that you twist them around a bit. Don't line them all up so that they're easy to push over if you nudge it. That's probably the safest way to do it, but let's give it a try and see. I should have picked a lighter one. Actually, that's a much more stable base than I thought. You could totally get away with applying a hand-rubbed finish like oil or hard wax oil or microcrystalline wax. You'd have to be fairly ham-fisted for that to rock around and fall over, but that's absolutely not a guarantee that it will work for you in those circumstances. That's not what they're designed to do, but you know, we don't always use stuff for the things that it's designed to do. It's good sometimes just to know that you can do it. So make what you will of that, but please don't think that I'm selling them to you based on that, because that's not the use case. Yes, you should absolutely wash them before you use them for the first time. Don't wait for them to get dirty before you give them a clean. So hot soapy water, pop them in the dishwasher, however you want to do it. But the reason for that, and this is a freshly unboxed set, is that from the factory they will feel a little bit silky, and that's because they use a mold release agent on these to make them easy to push them out of the mold. But when I pop them on the bench and apply the same sort of pressure, you'll see the difference in grip after you've cleaned that off. So do that. No, all of your standard adhesives, wood glues, epoxies, fillers, hot glue, none of that stuff will stick to these because they're solid silicone. That was one of the really big reasons why we went with silicone as a material, and it's also 100% waterproof, which means that you can always clean these under the tap in the dishwasher, however you want to do it. And we do recommend that you do that, because one of the things that silicone does do is to attract dust. So when you're using these, you do need to make sure that you're keeping them clean for maximum amount of grip. The compound that we've used of these is not soft enough that dust can get ingrained and permanently stay in these things, making them slick. So long as you keep cleaning them, when they get covered in crap, they're going to stay grippy. I'm quite happy to say no matter how hard you use these things, you will not be able to wear them out or to wear them down. They are premium quality, they are rugged and tough, and they will absolutely last for decades. We wanted to provide 6 in a set for a couple of reasons. So we are expecting that these will be used by woodworkers of larger projects as well. So to provide 4 just wouldn't work. So when you're working with things like big dining tables, if you're constantly breaking down and processing big slabs or doing large panel glue ups, you always just need an extra 2 to pop in the middle to stabilize the stuff that you're doing, even if you're only positioning your wood for glue ups. And actually, when you're producing a product anyway, what we have found is that it really doesn't cost that much extra to just give people an extra 2, particularly when it provides so much more value for the bigger projects that you're working on. Yes, the holder is included. In fact, it's integral to the set because it's what actually makes it easier to just get to them when you need them. What we haven't included is the screws to fix these to the wall, and that's because we have no idea what people's workshop walls will be made of. At the point I'm recording this, they're currently only available in the US from our website. Outside of the US, the 2 places we've had the most requests for by far have been from Canada and from the UK. So those are probably the 2 places that we will look to get these to next. But I think we're at least a couple of months away from doing that at the moment. We will let people know as soon as they become available in other locations. Yes, part of the reason why we've designed them the way that we've designed them is that we already know there's a couple of extra things we would like to add to these to make them more versatile and even better value. So this will be the main part in what will be a modular system that will do a couple more things just yet. But we won't be making any changes to this part because we already know that those things will work perfectly with what we already have. That's all of the questions that I can think of for now at least, but hopefully that's been useful to help you understand whether these are actually going to be of any use to you and any help to you in your woodworking projects. Please have a look at our tested to failure videos if you're on the fence or you want a bit more information. And we'll also have some more general woodworking content on the channel shortly.